Uh, yeah, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna mute that. Seems to have the audio now. Sure. Well, I think you guys touched on it last towards the end of the last episode there a bit, but Hunter's Orange is the main thing. I have purchased a backpack that is Hunter's Orange that I specifically use in the fall. So that's a big thing for me because my regular backpack is like a brownish olive. So that's one of the main things for me. And I try not to frequent areas that are being heavily hunted. Well, that's how it works in most areas. Nova Scotia with hunting, um, you don't necessarily have to have permission to hunt private land in Nova Scotia as long as it's wooded and non-cultivated, much the same as fishing. It's encouraged. I mean, it's just proper etiquette, really, to ask if you're hunting someone's woodlot or something like that. But there's no guarantee if you think you have permission to go camping on somebody's 200-acre woodlot that there isn't people hunting. Yeah. Fortunately and unfortunately, uh, it's really, I think, safe. People get hung up on it, oh, being hunting season, I shouldn't be going hiking or whatever. It's really safer than it's ever been, though. Um, hunt uh, today's day, but the bushcraft phenomenon, people getting into bushcraft, has been great. It's gotten people back out into the woods. That really hasn't struck with hunting. The large swaths of crown land out around here. When I was younger and in my teens, if you took a drive out some of those, they're called fire roads or whatever, there'd be vehicles parked everywhere for hunting. I've gone out, you and I think Jeremy camped out at that lake we on the fire roads last August. Uh, that road used to be Grand Central Station for hunting. You take a drive out there the first of deer season, you might see a vehicle or two. There's way less people in the woods now. Outside, they're sort of more centralized. They're around fields. They're around populations because that's where the large populations of deer and that are. And unfortunately, people used to get out in the woods and hike 2 miles back in the woods hunting. Now it seems to be the opposite, that people just don't want to get out in the woods, which leaves it for those of us who likes to get out there too. But I do use bells, particularly for my dog. I did more camping last hunting season than I think I ever have, and including with my dog. And I have a little bell on him when we hiked in the spots. Now, we never seen a soul. Never even. Actually, I lie. I seen one person on the way out coming in on a bicycle, so it was doing a mountain bike track. But we certainly didn't see any hunters or anything. You don't. With deer hunting, it was. I think if you went back to when they first implemented the buck law, when I first started hunting, it was basically brown. It's down. People used to say you could hunt any, doe, buck, didn't matter. Now you have to make sure it has horns in most cases, unless you have a doe tag. Uh, that's a lot more difficult when you're walking through the woods. You jump a deer, you're not going to have. Most times, you have no idea whether it has horns or not. And bear hunting around here has always been around bait for the most part. And one bait site could haul bear in for miles. So if you're not hunting on bait, you're not going to have much of a chance with the terrain that we have in Nova Scotia to even see a bear. Most Nova Scotians never even seen a wild bear before. So that's made people sick. It's really one of the only. It takes a lot of skill to still hunt big game animals, and there's not a lot of people with that skill. I think they're saying, sorry to interrupt, Ben, but I think they're saying that there's no audio for you.
How about now?
Okay, I'm going to mute that.
Hello, hello. Testing.
I'm just seeing where we're at now. Robert just joined.
So this might throw a whole new wrench in the works. Hey, buddy.
What's up? I've been trying to tell you have no audio. Did you get that figured out or what, man?
I'm not 100% sure. So we had tested it earlier and it seemed like we were getting it, but like Gary had it up on his TV and maybe it was picking up on through his mic.
All right. I literally ran in the door and jumped on here, so catch me up, gents. Chatting about hunting while camping, are we?
Yeah, well, a little bit of both. We kind of, well, I thought we had covered sort of camping, like things to do while you're camping, like putting bright objects near your tent and stuff like that, and making sure you wear bright gear. And Gary had mentioned, especially like having a bell like on your dog and stuff. But then we were just starting to get into like hunting while camping, things you can do like snaring rabbits and small game, like taking a rifle in with you and spending a day or 2 or 3 just in the woods, enjoying it and that extra activity. We hadn't said this yet, but not so different than what we do all summer when we take the fishing rod and go fishing and have an overnight trip. It's another excuse to get out.
I hadn't really done it myself until last winter, and I think one or two of my videos I went hot tetting back in the woods, and I took the fishing rod again, went ice fishing, but I also set snares on my way in, and once I made my camp I set a few snares around and ended up catching rabbits that night, and really quite enjoyed the whole experience. Caught a couple fish, got a couple rabbits, so I definitely plan on doing more of that this year.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great add-on to your trip and another excuse basically to get it, which is what I'm always looking for, is just another excuse to be out there, something else to do. Not that I found I've ever been bored while I'm out there, but I mean, just getting in, setting up a camp and getting your, some firewood done for your stove or for your campfire and all that takes a fair bit of time, but that other part of it, it definitely adds to and alters the trip a bit. And honestly, snares are a bit of an art in themselves. It's been a little bit while since I've done them, but
Well, you can almost say that about any reel trap, to be honest. If you don't practice it a little, it doesn't go well. We seen that with that spring pole trap that we tried to set the very first time. Worked 2-3 times before we started the video, and then shot the video and it fetched up, right?
Yeah. Well, and the last time I went camping, I'm not going to say exactly where, but last time I went camping, there was a ton of mice in the area, so I decided to just see if I could make a deadfall trap, just to see. And I whipped one out pretty quick. We never, the mice were safe, put it that way. We did bait it once and left it there to see, and we got up in the morning and the bait was gone and it didn't fall down. And later on we were standing there, it just fell over in the wind, right? It's a deadfall trap, I think the trick with that is numbers. You definitely want more than the one. And it is sort of the trick with snares, although I've got a buddy who swears if he puts out 10, he's coming back with 8. I've rarely had those kind of success rates.
I was going to say, those are excellent odds.
Yeah.
I really just got back into snaring last year, just again as an excuse to get out, and discovering my family liked ground rabbit meat, so that got me out even more. But I really enjoy getting out and exploring new areas, maybe set up 10 or 15 snares. I rarely set many more than a dozen. Yeah. I'll just set up a dozen, then come back and check them the next day or so, and then move on, try a different area, learn a different spot.
Yeah.
But I was more in the 30 to 40% success rate.
A little bit more along with the rest of us.
That's probably a bit closer to where I was. Sometimes more like the 10%. Depends on the weather and stuff. And sometimes we'd set a couple on the same run just because we have one. I remember we tried for quite a while with one, and he always kicked the first one over every time. So I was hunting with my dad at the time, and he's like, "We're gonna get him," and he went back 6-7 feet and stuck another one, and 6-7 feet more, and he stuck another one. One of the three got him eventually.
So have you guys talked about potentially hunting while you're out camping? I assume that's where this trapping conversation has come in a little bit, eh?
Yeah, it's briefly. I mean, like I mentioned, you can take a shotgun, go small game and stuff. We could do deer and stuff too. And when I was hunting moose in Cape Breton, we actually stayed in one of the parks just because we felt that the dryer was really nice. I'm not going to lie. All day out in the woods in Cape Breton, it was damp and wet all the time. We used to come back to Waikagama Park, and we just threw everything in the dryer. The rest of it, the luxuries I could have lived without, but nice warm dry clothes in the morning, that was awesome.
And big game hunting brings its own challenges into it if you're trying to camp and hunt big game, because what do you do if you get the big game and you're really far back? You know what I mean? Now you potentially have to lug all that out, or you have to come out and get somebody with you. I mean, personally, small game and hunting to me goes hand in hand. I think I mentioned last week I want to try and get out and do some bird hunting and maybe a camp over as well.
Yeah. No, that even big game though, like if you're back a bunch of woods roads and stuff like where we had been hunting, we were back. There's a lot of guys with like small campers and stuff, and they weren't going a huge distance from their camper, but it gets you further back. It allows you to be in the area, so when you get up in the morning, you don't have to do the 45-minute to an hour drive to your hunting ground. You're already there. Now you can, you get up, you have your cup of tea. Probably got that bowling before you're even out of bed. Even in tents and hammocks, we do that, right? And next thing you know, like as soon as your feet hit the ground, you got your shotgun, your rifle, and you can hunt like right away. Now, I think you'll both agree. Right next to your campsite, you may not see as much because they can smell you, they can sense you. But I mean, you can shoot things right from sight. The campsite, right?
I've gotten in my tent in the morning under fresh snow and had rabbit tracks all around the tent. So
yeah. See, you woke up too late, Gary.
But I just mentioned that it was sort of my reintroduction to bushcraft because I did some as a kid and stuff like that. But after my mother passed away, my father was like early 60s. He went up. He's always deer hunted, but he went out and he was going to spend the month of November in the woods in a tent. And I went out to visit him, and he was the one that he had a 3-4 season tent or whatever. But he had his kitchen area. He made tables out of sticks, little walls for wind blocks and stuff. And he did all the stuff that we talk about with bushcraft and that now, from tables, even a toilet, basically a throne to sit on. He had that stuff all made.
Yeah.
And he would stay out there for the season. And if he shot a deer, he'd hang it up in a tree. If it was warmer climate, a little bit on the warmer side, he'd have cheesecloth, and he could always call out every few days. And if he needed someone to help him come in, I'd go in and help him get a deer out. But that's sort of what got me back into doing the bushcraft and stuff, was seeing him that whole month that he stayed out there, with all the little things he did, projects he did when he wasn't hunting.
And you know what? That's a story that you don't hear a whole lot anymore. I mean, when I was younger, maybe 13, 14, I used to hear that a lot about the old fellas that were around home. You know what I mean? They'd go out first month, maybe a month and a half of hunting season. They'd go out, they'd make a bushcraft shelter, or not a bushcraft shelter, I guess, more like a bushcraft hunting base. Yeah. Kind of like poles, tarps. Somebody would drag in some sort of stove. And that's literally where they stayed until they got something, or they basically ran out of provisions, or weather turned or something like that. But I mean, when was the last time modernly you heard somebody doing something like that? I don't hear it a lot anymore. Maybe I'm out of the wrong clique, I guess.
Yeah, you don't. Well, it seems to be making a little bit of a comeback now, which is nice.
Well, the deer populations are definitely higher up now than they have been in the last. Well, I guess the last couple of years have been fairly high. Previous to that, as we know, they go in cycles. Most wildlife does. As the coyote population goes up, deer are going to go down, and then they'll hit the plateau where there's not enough food to sustain the coyotes. They'll die off, deer go back up. So we're kind of on the top of the bell curve right now. And yeah, for anybody that wants to get out, it's actually a real good time to get out. There's lots of opportunity in a lot of the areas now. And of course, I encourage everybody to check their local bylaws and stuff. A lot of the areas you don't need a doe tag, which opens up even more experience for somebody that's new getting in there. I don't know about yourself, Gary, or even you, Ben. I mean, I like to go get a nice little buck, get the rack, something like that, stay traditional to it. But I mean, somebody going out there just to get meat, if my freezer was empty, it's nice to be able to take that doe if it no longer has spawns and stuff, right?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time thinking about this. That just happens that the last 2 years I've got an 8-point buck each of the last 2 years. But especially with like this COVID stuff, I'm certainly paying a lot more attention to, some self-reliance type of stuff. We're canning stuff from our garden. If I get a chance at a nice doe, because I bow hunt and rifle hunt, I certainly would more likely take it this coming year than what I might have a year or two ago. Because I want stuff for the freezer, like vegetable gardens and stuff, we're freezing stuff and that. Just right now, you don't know what the next year's going to look like.
No.
Well, that's just it. There's a ton of uncertainty coming around here. What about yourself, Ben? I know you guys were dabbling with dehydration there for your camping trip, but I assume much the same. And I see now that Gary's already jumped down this rabbit hole. I've seen in the bushcrafting group or clique, whatever you want to call it, it seems COVID has really brought a lot of extra preparedness and repracticing of long-term storage skills. Mel and I, we have started stocking up on dry goods, started making dry goods, a lot more jerky and stuff like that being made, much like yourself, Gary. If I see a nice doe this year, I'll probably give it a real hard look and depending on what time of the year it is, I may very well take a doe myself. Much like yourself, I bow hunt and rifle hunt. My passion's bow hunting. Rifle hunting, I do with the father-in-law a little bit. He's better at rifle hunting than me. I'm not a good rifle hunter. I'm okay with a bow, not so great with a rifle, much like my fishing.
So I think pretty well the same stance. So if I can shoot it with a rifle, I'm probably at a distance that I could also shoot it with the bow, because I don't have the time to set up multiple spots. I do in close or personal hunting, I call it, because I find bow hunting is just that. But just as often than not, if I get it with a rifle, it's from the same stand and I'm getting a deer from 25 yards or something like that.
Yeah, for me, I do hunt in a different location for bow than I do with rifle. Just the rifle, of course, where you need that extra distance and stuff like that. We have a nice little spot set up. And the advantage of the bow, of course, is your distances from dwellings and stuff like that is significantly reduced. So that opens up a few more opportunities where I don't have to travel as far. But other than that, even our deer stand, I could probably take one with a bow, much like yourself. It's not that far away, but once again, I'm big on the bow, even the crossbow. I don't know if you can see them behind my head there. I think you can see the corner tip of my compound bow. But like you said, it's a more personal experience. And for anybody that really wants to appreciate where their food comes from, it's definitely something to try out if you think you have, I don't want to say the stomach for it, because that's not the right term. The tenacity for it, I think, might be the better definition there, because there is a lot more into it than just, putting the animal down and harvesting it. There's a lot of time going into the prep and, tracking if you so want to do that, or setting up a bait site, or just setting up a blind. It's definitely a good experience for anybody out there that really wants to get a firsthand idea of what goes in to getting meat that you can end up with, like end product on your plate.
Yeah. See, I grew up, that was where a lot of the meat I ate growing up came from. It was big game meat. And it's only now where I haven't really had the time and area to do it. I mean, I've done 2 moose hunts since I got to Nova Scotia. I've never tried hunting deer, personally. Small game is something that used to be a huge passion of mine. And it's just finding out when and where I can do it has always been my challenge. But now that I've gotten back into bushcrafting the last few years, I now have a much better idea of where I could and can and should go for a lot of this stuff. But if you're not from this area, honestly, it's a lot more complicated than maybe you'd think. The rules here are much different than what I was used to. But yeah, it's something a lot more satisfying about knowing that the food on your table, you went and hunted and managed to harvest it and process it. You know exactly what's been done with this food, all the way to the point where it got to your plate. And it's healthier, generally, unless there's something wrong with the area where it's been feeding. Your meat is leaner, it's cleaner, there's no antibiotics, anything. As long as it's been properly processed, aged properly, kept clean, you end up with a much better product. There's no doubt in my mind with that. So it's a great experience, and it's an excuse to get out there. I think me and you said that last one. You've gone before without your arrows and not really been overly upset about it.
Yeah, I've taken a few strolls, potentially leaving the quiver on the front seat, or actually on the rear floor specifically. I've taken the rifle out and forgotten the rounds in the trunk and stuff like that, But it is just a reason to get out there. And the good thing about deer hunting is if you're not big on bushcrafting, it's a good way to get out there and still enjoy the woods. And if you are getting into bushcrafting, it's a great way to see how to process game and stuff that you can translate into potentially, if you did want to get out there bushcrafting during the appropriate seasons and whatnot, snare a few rabbits, harvest, skin, process, all that right in the woods. Because 2 different animals, of course, but processing game, there's a lot of similarities between most mammals, I should say, ungulates and rabbits for sure. There's a lot of similarities there. If you want to get into like actual case dressing and stuff like that, birds, a little different again. But anyway, it's all skills you can literally translate into other areas that may assist you with your bushcrafting ability.
Yeah, and you don't have to hunt to do that. I mean, I put my game cameras out, and Tasha got mad at me last year because on 4 different occasions before I did get my deer, I came face to face with him 4 times when I was going back to check game cameras and never carried a gun with me. Because most of the time I'm going back to see what was back there and enjoy. Maybe it's only an hour in the woods. So I wouldn't even bring the gun or the bow with me. I was just taking a hike back. I'd check my game camera, maybe cook a steak or something on a little fire off somewhere and walk back. But the enjoyment I get out of those cameras is just as much as the hunting part. And anyone can do that. They can buy a relatively inexpensive one, set it up, and see what's out there.
Oh, for sure. And like you said, they are relatively inexpensive. Just so happens I pulled a couple of tester cameras down for the storm, and I mean, I think this was a 2-pack on sale for $110, $120, somewhere in around that area. And I mean, they're not the best cameras out there on the market by far, but they're not bad. No. I was surprised at the images that came back. Like I was pleasantly surprised for the money that was put in, the quality that came out of it.
Yeah, they've come a long way. So even the cheaper ones are quite good.
And honestly, even if you're not into the hunting to kill type thing, to just get out and take a camera and a skill that takes to just get those good photos of animals and wildlife, different birds, different animals. I mean, it opens up a whole other thing, but it's a type of hunting that doesn't necessarily involve to kill, because some people aren't into that, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with people who enjoy animals and can't, it's not their thing. I don't diss that. But
there's a gentleman in New Brunswick, a good friend of mine, Nathan Robinson. He does photography for some of the kayak tournaments and bass tournaments that I'm in, or I've been in. But he's become quite a wildlife photographer. His pictures of moose over the past few months have just been amazing. But he took, I think, 2 or 3 weeks. He's off right now. He's at moose camp. He's not hunting. Well, he is hunting, but he's hunting with an expensive camera.
Yeah.
And that's what he's doing. That's his vacation this year, is taking pictures of moose during the rut, basically. He's calling them in. He's doing everything that we might do if we went moose hunting, except he's carrying a camera. And just the camera.
Yeah.
And I know... Oh, sorry, go ahead, Gary. Or not Gary, Ben.
I think that, if I was so inclined to do that, that would be more enjoyable, because the fact is, when you go, for a deer hunt, once you get your deer, you got your deer, you're kind of done. And I know guys who see one on the first day and like, I'm not shooting that ends my season. But with photography, your season is as long as you want it to be. There's no real season per se. It's just till your next shot.
I used to pass up every deer because a week at deer camp wasn't until the second to last week of the season, because that was when it was most likely to have snow.
Yeah.
And it would have taken, I don't think I ever shot one in those first 3 weeks of the season. It would have taken a very special one for me to take. Nowadays, with the bow hunting or muzzle loader, I could possibly take one now and then take one during the general deer season and get 2. I haven't actually done that. I've only got the one a year, but there are ways that you can, with the primitive if you hunt with any of the primitive weapons, you can have the opportunity to get your second deer.
Yeah, no, for sure. Much like yourself, normally if I net one, I definitely don't try that hard on a second one. I may go out a little bit more with the father-in-law, then go out bow hunting. But I don't know if I could handle 2 deer. I don't think I got the freezer space.
I'm sure I don't have the freezer space this year.
If you guys run out, just gonna throw that out. No.
If I get a deer this year, Ben, I will happily give you a steak.
But
or a roast or some burger or whatever you want.
Or just come camping with me and bring it. That's all I ask, really.
Well, why don't we go camping and get the deer, and then you can take whatever you want.
Sure.
Seems to me I fed Ben some deer meat on our November camp out last year.
Yeah, you cooked it up on the little bio.
Yeah. BioLife.
Yeah. Yeah, that was good. Oh. Yeah, that was a trip that we really could have had set out snares and stuff on that trip, and that was a beautiful trip. And I think we seen quite a bit of sign that time, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we had the snow overnight, so we didn't have any going in, so that would have been a problem. But certainly seen some rabbit sign the next day in the fresh snow.
Well, that first night, had we set snares, the next morning we would have had to dig them out.
Yeah.
Because we got what, 2 foot of snow almost, or over a foot for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your ice fishing hut collapsed under the weight of the snow.
Yeah. It's not much better shape right now, really.
No, you still haven't fixed that?
I think she's done.
No, buddy, we can fix that. I can see a piece of fiberglass pole right from here. I can fix that with.
The other thing is, I think the days of me just going to a lake next to a road and setting up the ice shack,
Yeah.
that doesn't happen very much anymore. I'm more apt to go where I have to hike into one. There's a few lakes within an hour that I have to hike in about a kilometer or two. I've ended up taking the hot tent on a sleigh with me last year. We'd only got back a few times and fish a couple hours and have to leave. Being able to go in and actually stay there at night, that's really rekindled my interest in doing a little ice fishing. And then I threw in some snaring with it. So I'm kind of looking forward to that this winter as well.
Yeah, no, that really appeals to me. That does. Watching you do that last year, it definitely appealed to me. I mean, you got together once last year to try some ice fishing. It was less than spectacular. That was.
As ice fishing can be sometimes.
Well, we had some bad luck, but.
Oh, okay.
But I've never had great luck ice fishing. I've often tried it. I still think it's an enjoyable and fun activity, and I look forward to every time I get to do it. But I don't catch much when I ice fish. I think that generally I'm bad luck for that. But it's fun.
You can't be worse than me, Ben. Can't be worse than me.
Ice fishing, I am par with you, buddy.
Okay, par's bad, Ben. Like, here's normal fisherman, bad luck fisherman, me. Like, I'm down below my mic cord here.
You give me a fishing rod in a river, in spring, summer, and even early fall, I'll fish you all day.
Ben, you put a bit of ice over dynamite in the lake, and I'll get you something.
Next year we got to get you down to Lake Gasper Lake, getting those pickerel.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good.
I went bass fishing for the first time this year, and that's a pile of fun. I ended up getting 1 bass and 1 mackerel of all things.
I seen Gary got a couple of nice bass this year.
Keepers, Gary, or
what?
I think you're fucking stripers, are you?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm after stripers.
I've caught probably 50 stripers this year, which isn't that much considering where I live. Because if I could have went down at high tide tonight and caught 20, but that's not saying they'd be keepers. If I get 3 or 4 a year, I'm doing pretty good. I just haven't put the time in this year, so
I was going to say I've got 1 keeper.
Yeah, I caught 14 or 15 schoolies on the fly rod 2 weeks ago. That was an absolute blast, but they were nowhere. They weren't within 10 inches of being a keeper, I don't think.
Yeah, because for different areas, it's different lengths and different types of bass, like largemouth versus striped. Because I think the striped was 20 to 25 inches or 19 to 25 inches or something like that is the keeping limit for out there in Big Island.
Yeah, see, that's up your way. Here, they have to be over 27. or 27.4 or something like that for the minus
Yeah,
base.
I know it's different for the areas, and that's why I'm not just traveling around trying my luck, because I'm sure I'd screw it up and I'd have somebody telling me, that's got to go back.
If memory serves me, the Northumberland has slots, which would make sense if you're, let's say, 20 to 25 inches. I don't know what the slot limit is. In the minus basin, it has to be a big fish. So 27.4 inches or whatever it is, it's 27 point something and up. Which is, that's quite a fish. I mean, the biggest one I've ever caught in the kayak was 41 inches, and that took me to a different town by the time I landed it. So
I was going to say, for anybody that doesn't appreciate it, go grab a measuring tape and measure out what 41 inches is, and then picture trying to reel that in on a small boat.
I was 100 yards off the Kingsport Wharf at 2:30 in the morning when I hooked it. It immediately pulled me off anchor, and I was in Wolfville across the minus basin when I landed it, and got back to the wharf at 5:30 in the morning.
So that's a good fishing tale, but it adds light to this whole hunting and camping. You can go just as much fishing and camping as well. Like, there's a lot of, as you were saying, Gary, you can pack up your stuff. You can go in, either do ice fishing, you can do lake fishing if the water's open. It's just another reason to get out there, and gives you something to do if by chance you have a little spare time that you don't want to try to be doing something else. Like Ben and I have talked about this in the past. Anytime we're in the woods, we're always tinkering with something. There's very little downtime. But if you go in to actually make a point of doing said activity, be it hunting, fishing, you can actually have a ton of time and quite an enjoyable experience, even though you got towed way and away. I'm going to assume not only was the story good for that, but you probably had a smile for the rest of the day and probably the rest of the week landing something that size.
I think both me and the fish were done by the time. It was in the wee morning hours of the morning, so it was dark and that. But you're right. Like for Nova Scotia, where Ben and I were talking, where I camped last year, a couple of my videos, you can hunt. The lake is open year round. So whether, like if we weren't to go to that spot camping right now, we could fish from shore or, put a kayak in. If it's during the winter, you can ice fish. There isn't a month in Nova Scotia that you can't fish. And for most of the fall through the winter, there's always something you can hunt.
Yep.
I love putting a tag on. Like, yeah, I'm going to go hot tenting, but I'm going to do a little hunting or a little snaring or a little fishing.
No, and once again, during the winter, or at least snow-covered months, it does add another activity to do, because you potentially don't have the niceties of being able to do some of the tinkering stuff you can do in the non-snow-covered months. I mean, there's other things you can do. Don't get me wrong. There's always something to do. But it definitely gives you a sense of satisfaction if you go out and do a little camping, set a few snares, and you land a few rabbits, or you drill a hole in the ice and you get yourself a fish. It's kind of the icing on the cake in my eyes.
Yeah. And if you have snow covered, you can take a sled. It certainly enables you to get gear back in easier.
Yeah. I mean, in winter, it's kind of the canoe of the winter, right? Like it allows you to carry that extra bit of gear that you wouldn't want to just hike in with without that assistance, and that's always a great thing. I'm definitely looking forward to. I have to get a better sled this year. I tried the $14 Noma style cheap sled, and every time I went downhill, the front end dug in.
Tore the front off, didn't you? Oh, okay. It just dug in.
I cracked it up. I didn't tear it off, but she's in hard shape, buddy. She's got a few cracks.
Well, now that my uncertainty has passed for weekends, I might be able to get some sort of scheduling done here again.
Yeah.
Instead of walking on eggshells.
Yeah.
But
so that's awesome.
Yeah, no, it was a good time. We'll chat after the show for sure. But nope. Now, hopefully, a few weekends, I will at least be able to say I'm not, or I won't be saying I'm not sure anymore. It'll either be a yes or a no.
I got a slot for you this weekend, buddy. I can slide you right in.
Might be a little close. I don't know if Mel would be happy with that one. She's still gone. She's not coming back till Friday.
No, yeah, I have to be gone Friday night.
Well.
No,
But no. Yeah, we'll chat after the show, but kind of jumping back on topic somewhat. Gary, something you said is you can fish any month in any month of the year. What might be interesting at some point, because my fishing experience is limited, as Ben and I jest about quite a bit. Not only am I not good, I'm not knowledgeable. Might be interesting to get some information on some of the things you can do on the different months. I wasn't aware that you could fish every month of the year. I knew that you could ice fish and you could, fish during the open season. I always assumed there's a couple months in there that you just weren't allowed to throw a line in the water.
Well, when you get your fishing license, you get your regulations book. And you'll see that your fishing license is good from April 1st, normally, unless they cancel it for a month due to COVID, to March 31st.
Yep.
So in the different areas that the province is split up in that bulk, there'll be regulations, and most of them will have places that are extended seasons or all year. For instance, most people know of this Meadow Pond. When they drive from Windsor to Halifax, it looks like an old quarry on the side of the road, and they always see people fishing there. You can see it right from the 101. That's open year-round. It's not much good fishing in the summer because it gets too hot, but you'll see people this fall fishing there. There's a couple lakes in Kings County where I live that are open. There's at least 3 that are open year-round. There's some that are open as far as December 31st. A lot more down Yarmouth Way, like the Metagan River. People have heard of Metagan for the most part in Nova Scotia. But any lake or stream that's attached to the Metagan River is open year-round, at least for chain pickerel and white perch and stuff. So there's usually opportunity. I know there's some in HRM that have rainbows in and stuff that are open year-round. There's places, and of course Cape Breton has the Bredor Lakes where that's tidal. That would be open year-round. So there's usually something in every county, or there's some opportunities there for fishing. That doesn't mean it's going to be good fishing, but I have caught fish in every month of the year, so they can be caught.
What you're telling me is I need to read my regulation book again.
That's the
Perhaps just keeping it stowed in the bottom of the bag is not the best place for it.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just like we're into bushcraft and all that, but I mean, I'm huge into fishing. I just started competitive fishing again and having some success this summer, but I used to competitive fish a lot back 17 years ago. Sometimes it's just going to your local meetings. Like for fisheries, there's what's called a Recreational Fisheries Advisory Council, and they'll have meetings usually in the fall in every section of the province. And if you show up to them, you can ask questions. In one case, I asked a question about 2 lakes in Kings County. They're walk-in lakes. There's no roads to them, that didn't have trout in them, but had perch and bass and pickerel. And I said, is there any reason why these 2 lakes aren't open? They took a look at it, wrote me back a month later, and now they're open year-round.
Interesting.
So people who get involved in the sport, put some effort into. I go to the meetings when I can to try to, see what the state of the fishery is, or to try to do my part. You can sometimes increase opportunities out there because there's lots of water out there that, they don't want people fishing where the native brook trout are all winter because they're very susceptible to overfishing. You'll see it in Ontario. If there's a snowmobile path to a lake, chances are the brook trout are very low, if at all, have any population left, because you can get over a school of them and fish them out. So, but there is lots of opportunities in Nova Scotia, and there's hopefully more.
Welcome back there, Robert. What happened?
What's happened there, but I'm back. All right. But yeah, I got the gist of that. And yeah, once again, that's great information for me because never been much of a fisherman. I don't even lie about that. But it's something I'd actually like to try and develop. I've never been super great at fishing. I've always done like small brook fishing, and that's about all I'm good at, if you can call it that, Ben. But no, it's definitely something that I myself at least will at least pull the book out and give it another look, and maybe I'll look for some of these meetings. I know they have similar meetings for hunting and ATVing and stuff like that. I didn't know such a thing existed for fishing. So where do you get information on this stuff? Is it going to be in the book, who to contact, or is there a website? Or
I'm not sure if the Recreational Fisheries Council is listed in there. There's probably a contact, or if you contact it, the Department of Forestry or Naturals, whatever the department that handles
Lands and Forestry right now, I think is what it's going by.
This week.
But it's through them, so they'd have the information. Because I've gone once and I gave them my email, I get the dates for the Valley area. When there's a meeting coming up, I'll get an email a month or so before, and they're open to anyone. Sometimes it's just interesting. They might have someone. They had a girl biologist there who's studying striped bass in our waters, and she just did a presentation that night. Incredibly interesting information if you have an interest in that fish, which I do because it's right in my backyard. But if you're into fishing, it's worth maybe having a look at.
No, for sure, and it's all good information. Like regardless, even if you don't have the interest in it, I'm sure you'll find something from the meeting that is at least going to pique your interest.
Yeah, I think it's great. I had only heard about it, I think, this year when you were telling me about it. Yeah, we were ice fishing. You mentioned that having proposed a couple of lakes and got them done. So that's the first I'd heard of that. But yeah, definitely important to get involved in your sport and push for those changes and improvements.
Well, the lake that we were on wasn't always open for ice fishing either.
No.
Someone at some point went in and said, you know what, this would be a good spot for it. A good opportunity, because Nova Scotia's looking at giving us more winter opportunities, but they're afraid to do the leg work because time, resources, and stuff, and they're afraid of harming the native stocks. So it's quite often, if it's a lake that has chain pickerel or something like that, or white perch and no viable trout population, they're looking at trying to open places up to get people outside. And anything that gets us outside is good in my book. So
I should be proposing to get my lake done.
They wouldn't do yours.
No?
Guarantee it. Yeah. Yours would be good for it. But because of some of the activities that go on there in the spring, they'd never open it for ice fishing.
Yeah, I guess. Although I've never seen a trout in there. Of course, I've never seen those other fish you've seen there either.
I heard you were up there fishing a little bit, Gary, and potentially pulled some stuff out of that lake that Ben didn't really know was there.
He's got a pretty special place there, I think.
Ben's a pretty special person.
I'm special, all right.
Last Sunday, I think I released a video of my trip up on Ben's water, and it was pretty impressive stuff there. There's definitely some big fish in that water.
Yeah. No, I was impressed. But Robert, you're 100% right. You should get out there with Gary and do some fishing, and I'll definitely join if I'm invited. But
no, for sure. I definitely want to go out and get some experience. Gary seems like the kind of guy that I should at least be able to acquire some information from when it comes to fishing.
I think a group Gasbro lake trip to one of the island campsites would be a hoop for a weekend.
Definitely would. I can probably even loan you a boat there, Robert.
Well, yeah, I definitely need a boat because, I mean, I could try doing the breaststroke the whole way, but man, it wouldn't go well.
Yeah, if we went in the back way that I've been going this year, we wouldn't have to worry so much about the weather because we'd be far enough back where we'd be more sheltered than the trip I took Ben on the year before.
As long as we don't take Jeremy, we'll be fine.
Yes, that's true too. Yeah,
and I fixed that problem. Like, I took Jeremy's boat from him.
I was gonna say, what's wrong with Jeremy? He packs up so small. He's like add-on luggage.
He had more pounds in gear with him than he weighs last year.
Well, to be fair, that is kind of Jeremy's thing. He likes to test the gear. He likes, he likes to test the gear. Let's leave it at that. I'm not going to jump head first on that rabbit hole. That's for sure.
But no, I did take his boat away from him. He doesn't have a boat anymore. He's got no watercraft.
No.
It wasn't safe for him. It really wasn't.
No, it was the wrong tool for the job for sure.
Yeah, it was entertaining though, wasn't it?
Well, I did more worrying on our way out there that I tried to stay on the outside of you guys because it didn't look good, and Gasparro gets pretty good at the best of times.
Yeah, I think if I did it again, I'll take the 12-foot or the 16-foot. I won't take. I've never take the 8-foot, but 10-foot was okay. I think.
I did go from that landing all the way back. It's a 15-kilometer paddle.
Yeah.
This year, 2 nights. It was enjoyable. It doesn't take forever, but you are sort of at the mercy of the weather.
Yeah.
Where you can go into another spot, it's more remote. In a 200-yard portage, and you're in the thick of things where you not have large swaths of open water, and you're right into the fishing from the start. And there's a couple ground land sites out there. If the weather was iffy at all, I'd definitely say go in the back way.
Well, I think you hit a good point there, though, and that's regardless. I mean, this week was a bit of an example of it, but anytime you go into woods, you do have to sort of take weather in consideration. And something I've always tried to do, I always kind of prepare for at least one extra day at the end, because you don't know what's going to happen. You could get delayed by a day in there easy. It doesn't take much especially on boats and stuff, for the wind to come up and you get pinned to shore, and you're better off just waiting it out than trying to push through.
Yeah.
And I mean, we experienced that with Jeremy. Those winds when we came around the point were pretty extreme, especially for some of the equipment we had, and we were much better off settling down. I mean, all jokes aside, I mean, it's funny, but and I've heard a ton of stories. Like, I'm going to Keji again this year. I've heard a ton of stories of people on Keji, like, the wind comes up and there's no point in trying to go through. And me and my wife pushed through bad weather one time and I sunk one kayak completely, and hers had, I bet you, over 100 pounds of water in it when I pulled it out.
Yeah, I've always compared the 2 lakes because they're both big, they're both shallow.
Yeah.
So the wind can pick up across them, and there's no place for the water to go but up. So both lakes are very susceptible to dangerous winds, and that always has to be in the back of your mind if you're spending time on either one of them. Like I say, I have backup plans for Gasparro. Even if I did go in the long way, if I had to scoot out the short way and walk 15 kilometers to get out to the main road to get someone to pick me up, that might be the best choice. If I had to get out, or you plan, 2 days, but you have a third day just in case you get windbound.
Yeah. And of course, still standby. You always let people know where you're going and when you expect to be back. And I mean, that just
Well, gentlemen, I hate to cut it short, but I am being summoned semi sorta here. So I am going to bow out tonight. I'm sorry I can only pop in for a small little chat here with you. Shoot me a message when you're done there, Ben. Gary, thanks for coming on to the show. Sorry I couldn't chat more, but you gentlemen finish it up and have a good night.
Thank you.
Hey, Robert, we probably won't be far behind.
All right, see you guys.
My wife's just getting home from work herself, so.
Yeah, so I guess we could summarize a little bit. I mean, we talked a bit about, some safety stuff, like, your bright orange, making sure people are aware of your two. Choose areas that are, aren't as frequented by hunters. But then on the flip side of it, if you want to get out and do some hunting, it definitely adds an aspect to it. We got talking about fishing and stuff. Overall, I mean, I think, it all plays a part in it. Getting out in the woods, anything you can do out there is great. I mean, it's definitely something we become quite passionate about. You're obviously very passionate about the sport, especially fishing and hunting. And your rabbit catching last year was quite good. I think it did really good for your channel, did it not? Like, was that some of your better viewed episodes, or?
I think the hot tents really outshine everything, but the point of my channel is I'm going to do stuff that I enjoy, and it's usually going to have a little touch of fishing or a little bit of hunting in there.
Yeah.
That's what gets me out in the woods, and any excuse to get in the woods is a good one. So
I agree 100%. For me, it can be anything to almost nothing that gets me out there. But everything out there definitely adds something to it. Whether it's just getting that special sunrise or sunset, or just enjoying a good meal at a fire, but having something else there to do to kind of occupy your time and sort of, how do you say, just add to it. It does make it very enjoyable. The fishing, is a great time. Hunting is always fun and challenging. I think that's a big part, is the additional challenge.
Yeah, I mean, we're coming to the best part of or at least my favorite part of the year. I've got more time booked off between now and the end of November than I had the rest of the year combined. I'm not going to let people hunting keep me from getting in the woods, and I'm looking forward to get out in the woods as much as humanly possible over the next 2 months. So
yeah,
it's a great time here. So.
Well, I'm noticing that the leaves are already really changing colors around here. I don't know what they're like down your way.
I don't know about the leaves changing colors, but after the little bit of a tropical storm, there's a coating of acorns all over my lawn. So,
I've noticed for the last week and a half, there's more and more reds and yellows starting to show through. Especially, I think, like the maples seem to be changing. There's a few other trees for sure. My oak tree outside, that won't change till December. That thing's the last tree in the entire province to change, I swear. But yeah, no, I'm seeing a lot more. I'm kind of hoping when I get down to Keji, I'll see a few, but I know that they seem to hold on for another week or two longer than out here.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is possibly some of the most beautiful time of year, getting out in the fall. For the leaves and stuff, but the weather's also, I think, in a lot of ways, some of the best weather we get. It's not so hot that you're uncomfortable. It's cool enough that you can really enjoy it. You can really hike and get out there. So it really is a great time to be out there. And like you said, the hunting is not what it was necessarily years ago. I think overall people are a little bit safer, and it's not as saturated as it once was. And so just a little bit of caution and some common sense goes a long way.
And October the 15th is not that far away. And for those of us that like the outdoors, and particularly outdoor cooking, that might be a significant date because from October 15th to March 15th, we can have fires during the day.
Yeah.
Where we can't from 8 a.m. to 2 right now, at least, starting October 15th, barring a fire ban. That's when the outdoor cooking really becomes a primary interest to me, too.
That's a really good point. It's something I don't think we've really talked a lot about on these podcasts. We do mention cooking by fire and the fire ban a lot, and Robert's even gone to the point of explaining what drives the fire ban. But yeah, like you said, October 15th, all day fire is more of a possibility, barring bad weather conditions and stuff. And that's definitely a pretty good thing, especially if you're going out for a couple of nights.
Yeah. It's probably one of my most enjoyed activities in the woods is cooking over a fire. Yeah. Don't get to do it a lot, particularly this year, but I certainly enjoy it when I have the opportunity, so I'm looking forward to that coming up.
Yeah, me too. The last trip I had, like good trip with a few friends, we were watching the weather up to a few weeks before, and it was so dry, like it was just generally a fire ban. That was a huge disappointment to us. And fortunately, like just before our trip, we got a little bit of rain and they lifted it, and we could have fires in the evening. But we were really worried that everything would have to be done on the little canister stoves, which is not quite as fun. It definitely does.
You'll see if anyone watches any of my videos from early this summer, the opposite nearly always happened to me. I'd go out there looking at the days leading up, I can have a fire at 7, and then I check it the afternoon that I arrive at camp, and the full-on fire ban always hit. So I seem to have very bad luck this year for that. So I did get a lot of use out of my new canister stove. So, I mean, well, that's fun. It's just not the same as cooking over a fire.
No, it's not. And funny enough, just there over March break, I got a couple of rims, and I'd welded myself a little fire pit for my backyard. And I swear that, like, while I was welding it, they put like a province-wide fire ban on for the next couple of weeks. I got so mad I just took the whole thing and I tossed it and I didn't finish it till midsummer.
Yeah, that was one of the few things we were looking forward to and couldn't do at that time, but it was an interesting time.
Anyways, buddy, it is getting late. I always enjoy talking to you, and I know we'll be talking in the next few weeks for sure. And we'll definitely have to plan to get together and do something fun and exciting again soon.
Yeah, well, I think I have a certain girl in here that definitely wants to get out. So we'll have to try to make that happen at some point. So
I think I wouldn't have to look too far to find one or two of those myself.
Right.
So.
Well, certainly thanks for having me on. I enjoyed it.
Anytime, buddy.
And yeah.
We keep hinting that we're eventually going to do the campfire episodes where we get like myself and Robert and hopefully you and maybe Jeremy and a few other people on occasion, maybe a rotating crew where we just get together and chat, not about any particular subject. So just tossing it out there, no specific day or plan for that yet, but
yeah, that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it would. Anyways, something to tease people about maybe in the future. We've been teasing them for quite a few months about the whole concept, but anyways, thanks a lot, buddy. We'll be talking.
Take care. Right, thank you. Good night.
Everyone else, get out there, have fun, be safe, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye now.